Quite an epic way to get this workout started off. It's gonna be a superset. Banded box squats with box jumps. They don't call this one the buff dude stage for nothing. This is gonna be hard as hell. So we hope you're ready. It's all been leading to this. It's gonna be 6 of the most intense days you're probably ever gonna train back to back to back. We're doing it, you're doing it, and we're all gonna finish this thing. So it is push day today, so all the exercises are focusing on the pushing mechanism. So we're starting off with the banded squats. As you can see, we just have some bands and they're connected to some heavy dumbbells. Obviously not everyone has this kind of setup, so just feel free to do normal box squats. But the bands provide a little bit of a different kind of resistance. It's called accommodating resistance. So when you get down to the squat position, the bands are alleviated a lot of the resistance. But as you press upwards, it gets a little bit more difficult as the band stretches. So it's a little bit of a different type of movement, and it is really geared towards building a lot of explosive strength in the legs. And of course, we're supersetting it with the box jumps, another very explosive exercise. You're gonna have to it's gonna require a lot of energy to accelerate yourself, propel yourself up to the top position, landing, and then stepping back down and repeating. Now the volume is going up in this stage. The last stage was only 3 sets. This one is gonna be focusing on 4 sets. So a little bit more difficult. And of course, with all the added supersets and those really ballistic and power-based movements along with the typical kind of bodybuilding type movements, it's a pretty sweet stage. So we're looking forward to this one. Make sure you rested up and recovered for this one because it ain't easy. Now we're gonna give our legs a short break. We're moving on to the incline stability press. One after another, baby. 30 to 60 second rest times. Let's do this. Hype man's back.
Hype man. Go, daddy, go.
One thing you'll notice when you're starting out in your lifting career, I've been through it, a lot of teenagers do. When you get under the bar, it's very hard to control the bar. Your legs are kind of flailing around. You're kind of moving the bar back and forth, and that's called bar control. And it's one thing you slowly develop as you progress in your lifting. So doing a lot of barbell presses, doing a lot of dumbbell presses is really gonna teach you to do that. But unfortunately, sometimes when you start going heavy, you lose a little bit of bar control because that heavy weight, you're just not quite used to it and not really training those stabilizer muscles to their best advantage. So something like the stability incline press is really gonna help with that because it creates a lot of that instability. You're gonna be training your muscles to really fire up and make sure you're controlling that bar properly. It's not really gonna be about a lot of weight on this one. It's gonna be about how stable you are, pulling those shoulder blades back, really kind of like acting like you're bending the bar so that way you really stabilize the shoulder girdle, and then you can get a really nice clean press. And of course, after doing something like this, going back to the standard barbell press, you're gonna feel a lot more stable and more strong. And that's kind of the purpose for introducing an exercise like this. So definitely, it is one of our favorites. We don't do it a lot, but once you do it, you actually feel like you should do it more because you feel very unstable. So you're like, well, shit, I should introduce this a little bit more so I can feel nice and stable. Yeah, it's good. Another thing that it kind of teaches you is tempo, because if you're going too fast, those kettlebells are gonna start swinging and it's gonna throw you off even more. So tempo is gonna be a very important thing. Very slow and controlled on the way down and very controlled on the way up to help keep those kettlebells from swinging. So another big advantage of this exercise is tempo control.
T-shirt's coming off.
It's to help see the muscle activation. It's for science.
Science-based.
Ego-based. That was not easy. Doing the push jerk, very much a lower body exercise because you're utilizing a lot of push with the legs, power with the hips. You're catching it with your straight arms. So a lot of activation in the traps too to stabilize that position. Of course, immediately going on to the overhead press, which is predominantly shoulders and traps. So by the end of it, those traps are burning big time. You get a lot of push from the legs in the first exercise, and then a lot of push with the shoulders on the second. Walking overhead lunges. This is a variation to what the program says the sled push, which thankfully, if you don't have a sled, you can do different exercises to fill in some of the same kind of mechanics. Definitely a leg heavy exercise, the walking lunges, but we're utilizing a little bit of the upper body for stabilizing the weights overhead. So the shoulders, traps, gonna be engaged, and also the core for stabilization because you're raising your center of gravity with the weights above. So it's definitely pretty difficult. That's the great thing. It's a little bit of a bummer. COVID going on, a lot of gyms closed. We don't have the space we normally would with something like the sled push, but you always have a good alternate exercise available. We have overhead walking lunges. It's not easy, but it's all we got, so we're taking it. With a lot of other exercises in today's workout, this is another one where you really want to work on that stability. Want to take a little bit of a staggered, wider stance, because you can kind of be all over the place, especially shifting that 45-pound plate. But great exercise, really hitting those legs back to back with the overhead walking lunges and split squats. We haven't done this one for a while, and it feels good to be back. A lot of legs, a lot of core, a little bit of the arms and shoulders to hold that weight. Whew. I'm gonna worn out. Going heavy with the seated calf raises. Now with seated calf raises, you're working a little bit more on the soleus of the calf, which is kind of more that underlining muscle that goes under the major portion of the calf muscle. But we're supersetting with some sky reaches, and that is really gonna be hitting those calf muscles hard. It's gonna be 30 repetitions, so just body weight, but it's gonna make those calves burn pretty hard. We're just doing it against a wall, makes it a little bit easier. Focus on keeping tension in the calves. Don't even touch your heels to the ground. Go down and right back up, but you want to really get on those toes as much as you can. I gotta admit, I lost count. That was burning pretty hard, but that's the point of it. You want those suckers to burn. Whew. Last exercise of this workout is gonna be weighted hanging leg raises, 3 sets, 10 reps. You have to have the chimp strength in your feet on this one because there's a little bit of dexterity there. And if it's hurting a little too bad, you can just use your shoes. But thankfully, me and Brandon were those kids that walked around barefoot everywhere we went growing up. So it's just like big sheets of leather down there. So final exercise, hitting the core, and then we're done with day 1. Hell yeah. That wraps up stage 5, day 1. Now we have 5 days to go, and that was pretty killer. Thankfully, we have our hype man. He's gonna continue to hype us up. Oh no, even he's running out of hyping. He's going, no, stay back, but we're buff dudes. We gotta power through, so we'll see you again for day 2. Rest up, get plenty of recovery, because this one is gonna continue to kick your, I can't really use language while my 2-year-old's around. It's gonna kick your booty. It's gonna kick your bum hole.
This is gonna be hard, because black dudes